it's sort of a mecca for high performance sports. I mean, you've got arguably the best football team in the world here, Barca. You've got such a huge tennis scene that has produced all of these top players. The thing I said about climate does actually come into the picture with sports as well, because you've got this perfect weather to be outside training on the court or on the soccer field or whatever, pretty much year round.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. And today I'm here with Kyle. And Kyle, first of all, how's the heat in Barcelona these days? And how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great, and the heat has been pretty miserable for Barcelona standards, right? These last couple of weeks.
Right.
But I'm originally from Austin, Texas, so I'm used to really sweating through it, and I can't complain personally about the heat. Today you actually caught us on a very rare, cloudy, rainy day in Barcelona. One of the reasons I love living here is for the perfect sunshine weather. So you can see I got my raincoat back there and everything. That's pretty rare in Barcelona, but everything's fine.
I don't even think I brought my raincoat over to Lisbon. You know,
but Lisbon, it rains there a whole lot more than Barcelona.
I guess it does, but it's not really rain though. For us Scandinavians.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna be here most of the summer anyway. So as far as I understand, a lot of the raining is kind of over. So I think it's pretty good. But you're from Texas though, so you're kind of used to the heat anyways, I guess, in a sense. But first of all, thanks for taking the time, and it's going to be a pleasure having you, talk a little bit about your experience, a little bit about your journey, what you're doing at all this Prep Academy stuff in Barcelona, all this good stuff. But first and foremost, just take us a little bit through, I guess, your journey, going into the sports education sector, kind of take us a little bit through your background.
Okay. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you making the time to talk to me as well. Believe it or not, I don't have a strong sports background. I know it's hard to tell through the video call, but I'm a really skinny, scrawny guy who wasn't very good at sports in high school, and you were more likely to see me, on the debate team or doing something more academically oriented than shooting hoops on the basketball court or whatever.
Right.
So my journey here is all through the education side, right? And it was only later that I would develop this deeper understanding of the sports world and all of that. And it's because I'm working with AESA Prep Academy. AESA has a lot of student athletes. We're not a school that's just for student athletes, but we do have an academic model that works very well for them.
Yeah.
So, I came in through the education side and through contacts with all of our student athletes. I've learned a little bit more about the sports world, but still, don't quiz me on anything too sports related, or I'll be embarrassed.
No worries. And it's quite interesting. And I guess it takes a little bit, I guess, how you ended up in Barcelona. That's just doesn't happen happen overnight.
Sure. Well, let me tell you a little bit about my personal story then. I am from Austin, Texas, and joined AESA in 2010 as a part-time Spanish teacher. But I loved the organization and would stay there over the years. And in 2015, the owners of AESA offered me the opportunity to come here to Barcelona and set up a school here. And I've been here for going on 7 years now. I love the city. I love what I do, and we have there are 2 AESA schools that I'm running these days.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to tell you all about that too.
Awesome.
But that's how I ended up here.
I mean, like it's a cool story though. You wouldn't think like suddenly there's an American in Barcelona. Doesn't it?
Yeah, usually I've got my cowboy boots on and I would show you, but
where's the cowboy boots and hats?
The hat's a bit much, but usually I do wear the boots.
Yeah.
And I just didn't wear them today because everything's all muddy, and I don't wear my nice boots.
I mean, like there's some quality boots though. To be fair, just talking about the boots as well. But I mean, like it is like quite a tradition, like wearing hats. Though, but I guess like not. I guess it's in certain areas of Texas, or is there anything like that in Austin too? Just out of curiosity, I guess.
Anything like what? I'm sorry, I missed
in terms of the hats. It's a
that's still a big thing, and it's not to say that we're all real cowboys or out on the ranch or whatever, but it is emblematic of Texas culture. In fact, if you go to the Capitol building in Austin, Texas, you will not see anyone there without cowboy boots on. And if they are, they're not from Texas. So we still wear the hats, we wear the boots, even though, it's not the Wild West, right? Like 90% of Texas, I would guess, is urban and suburban, living in and around cities. So,
yeah. But Texas is nice. I mean, like I haven't been there personally, but I mean, like obviously one of the big things, if we were talking back to like a little bit of the sports side, obviously, college sports, college football, it's a big thing in Texas. So I'm sure you, even though you weren't like the most active on the field, I'm sure you've been to like some. There you go.
Yeah, I got my Texas Longhorns right here. I went to UT for grad school, and like you're saying, it's big. Football, American football in Texas in general is huge, and Austin doesn't have a whole lot of professional teams. So we really focus on UT, college ball, right? Especially football and basketball. Those are the big ones, and we celebrate.
You're pretty big at it too, though. Like when it comes to college football.
Oh yeah, it's a lifestyle. I mean, we do tailgating before our, especially before the college football matches, like where you drive up your big truck, you've got a barbecue smoker, and you're out there grilling and having fun with your friends all day. And we make an event out of it. It's not just, the game itself. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I mean, like, if we're speaking a little bit back to Barcelona, obviously now you're the director at the AESA Prep Academy of Barcelona. And I guess talk a little bit about some of your, key responsibilities and tasks that you do in your role now.
Sure. Like you said, I'm the director of AESA Prep Academy of Barcelona. That's our brick and mortar campus here in the city and where I'm talking to you from today. I also manage our online school, AESA Prep International.
Yep.
And it's a funny question. And I think if you asked anyone from a small school, you would get a similar answer, that we wear a lot of hats, right? When you're in a small school, this is true for all of the faculty and staff as well. Everybody pitches in and does a little bit. Most of my day-to-day is focused on big picture administrative things. And that could be anything from, balancing our budget and accounting and contracts and all that fun stuff, to business development and working on, marketing or creating relationships with other academies or schools that we could partner with. But people wouldn't be surprised to maybe see me down in the garden one day putting together an IKEA table or whatever, like changing the ink cartridges in our printer. There's no task too big or small for me. So it's a mixed bag, and especially with the 2 different schools, they have different set of needs, and that means I have to do all kinds of different things at the same time, and it's often a juggling act.
Right. It's part of the game. It's part of like just being adaptable and flexible. And I think it's good for people to understand too. It's in a lot of, and especially relating to sports. I mean, like you have to wear multiple hats often. I mean, like even in education too, it's not major businesses or organizations, although of course some are, but it's important to have that understanding of how the industry works. And when it comes to the Prep Academy is itself, like tell us a little bit more about it, like who is it targeted towards, and talk a little bit about why this is sort of like a great option for elite and student athletes. You mentioned a little bit about it in the beginning, but kind of like a little bit more in depth.
Sure, of course. And all that, I promise I'm going to keep it short and sweet, but I've got to start from the very beginning with this question. Just so you have our background and context and everything, and understand where we're coming from at AESA, and then I can tell you a little bit more about what the picture looks like today. But it's very important to understand the start. So we got started in Austin, Texas, by Rick and Barbara Garsons, husband and wife, who founded the school in 2009. Now, Rick and Barbara have two twin boys that grew up playing tennis. They're very much a tennis family. In fact, they still play like father and son tournaments and everything from time to time. But anyways, the boys got very serious about tennis when they were around 13, 14 years old. And when I say very serious, I mean that they started training 4 or 5 hours a day on the court in the gym. They would have to travel for tournaments, sometimes out of state or out of the country, right? And when you're that committed to your sport or whatever passion, it starts to get challenging to balance all the rest of life alongside it, right? Yeah. So the Garzas found themselves in this predicament where, on the one hand, they want to support the boys and their passion for tennis. On the other hand, they said, you're going to go to university, you're going to get a good education. This is not negotiable, right? Right. So probably some of your listeners too can relate to this story, right?
I would assume.
Yeah, or if they're young athletes themselves, it can be very challenging to be competitive in today's athletic world and get good grades in school and go on to university. So Barbara's the education veteran. She's worked in the sector for over 40 years. And she looked around for schools that could offer two things at the same time. One, flexibility, so the boys can keep training and competing. And two, quality, so that they're getting a good education that's going to actually prepare them for success at the university level. Right. What she found at the time is that didn't exist. And, bringing all of that knowledge and expertise from her experience in the education world, she said, look, I'm just going to do it myself. I'm going to start AESA. That was in 2009. She knew other families in the tennis world that were stuck in the same predicament. Right. And that's how AESA got started. The way that we accomplish that goal of meeting both flexibility and quality is by, I'm just giving away all the secrets. No, I'm kidding. It's by keeping our classes really small on purpose. And when I say really small, I mean, a big class at AESA might have 8 or 9 kids in it. And a small class at AESA might have 1 or 2. Right. This is sorry, what?
Right. No worries.
Oh, yeah. So this model allows us to give a lot of personalized attention and support, because even if you're the best teacher in the world, if I put you in a classroom with 30 students and you might have 5 or 6 of those a day, you just don't have enough bandwidth to provide that same level of attention and support. So that's what sets us apart from most schools and what makes us special. I will feel like I should point out that we're not just a school for athletes only. We'll take academics. We have performing artists. Austin's a big music city. We've got a few ballet dancers here. So yeah, whatever our philosophy is, whatever you're passionate about, you shouldn't have to choose between your passion and getting a good education. We want you to be able to have both at AESA. So that's how we got started, and our story. Again, it'll probably relate with some listeners, whether they're young athletes or parents of young athletes. And what we're doing today, I touched on this a little bit with my personal story, right? So I would join in the second school year, and in 2015, through the tennis world, everything happens through the tennis world. So through the tennis world, the Garzas met the owner of SA International Business School, which you're working with them, and I met you here on our campus, right?
Yeah,
so they met, they met Jordy through the tennis world. He's a former tennis pro, and they were explaining to him what AESA is and what it's all about in Austin. And he said, "You guys, you have got to come to Barcelona. We have all of these international students pouring in from around the world to train, especially with football and tennis. And a lot of these kids, they want a school program that's in English. Almost all of them are kind of looking towards the U.S. for the next step, so they can get a scholarship to a U.S. university, continue their sports there and everything." So it makes sense, and it made sense to the Garzas, enough sense at least for them to offer the role to me, and they sent me out here in 2015. Like I said before, the first thing we did was set up AESA Prep International, our online school, get that accredited, approved by the NCAA and all that.
Right.
Then I started a blended learning program in 2016, where students enrolled in our online school would come to campus, receive face-to-face instruction in a traditional classroom setting, help them through those online studies. And then that would grow and evolve over the years until it eventually became AESA Prep Academy of Barcelona, which we got accredited in June 2020. So now we've got the three AESA schools. There's the original, what I call the flagship campus in Austin, and then AESA Prep Academy of Barcelona, and AESA Prep International, which is online.
There you go. So there's a lot of options, and I think you already covered or touched a little bit upon the SE, relationship that you guys have and how that worked, which is obviously, a great way to kind of like supplement and work together in the tennis world. I guess like that kind of like how you guys met there too. But speaking a little bit about, being based in Barcelona, I mean, like you've been there now for like 7 years. And if you wanted to like talk a little bit about like, some of the key benefits, but also some of the challenges, I guess, these, students needs to keep in mind before kind of like making that decision. What are some of the things that, you would highlight for them?
Sure. Can I start with the benefits? I feel like that one's easier.
Yeah. Go for it. There's probably a lot of benefits.
Yeah, exactly. There's the obvious stuff that we all know if you've been to Barcelona, right? The beautiful weather, you've got mountains and beaches, friendly people, good food. I mean, I could go on and on about the city, but I feel like pretty much everyone understands that this is a desirable place to be, and hopefully they can make it through here. All of your listeners, I hope they can make it through here at least once in life. It's a wonderful, wonderful city and good place to be.
Yeah.
I think specific to the sports world, it's sort of a mecca for high performance sports. I mean, you've got arguably the best football team in the world here, Barca. You've got such a huge tennis scene that has produced all of these top players. The thing I said about climate does actually come into the picture with sports as well, because you've got this perfect weather to be outside training on the court or on the soccer field or whatever, pretty much year round. And it's created a culture and an industry around this. There are a lot of high performance academies around town. Many of them we work with, right? They send us their high school age students, and kids come from all over the world because they know that they're going to get some of the best training here, and that there's a lot of infrastructure and support for high performance athletics. So those are the advantages, both the obvious ones and the ones related to sports that are coming to my head right now.
Yeah.
Challenges is harder for me to answer that question. I think that the challenges are pretty generic to, especially for these international students who are coming here, generic to picking up and living in a different place, a different country, far from home, far from mom and dad and your friends and your comfort zone, right? I know that both you and I can relate to that on a personal level.
Yeah.
But I think in the end, that is a challenge that manifests into an advantage when that part of the story is said and done. I say that because when you, especially at a young age, when you get out of your comfort zone, you grow up quickly, right? And I think when you have meaningful international experiences, it tends to open your mind and help you think differently. And, you meet people from all over the world. You learn to celebrate your differences, and simultaneously you learn that we're basically not that different after all. So I think it's a profoundly impactful experience for young people to go through that challenge and survive that challenge.
Right.
Makes them, better people in the long run. And I'm oversimplifying and using very generic terms, but at least you can relate to.
But I think it's an important point, and it's definitely a challenge worth pursuing and coming across, because you're gonna benefit and gain so much from it. It's a great learning experience, and especially at that early age too. It's it's something that you will take with you for the rest of your life, and perhaps, who knows, maybe you'll do like Kyle and stay in Barcelona a few more extra years. Who knows?
Yeah, that happens with our students sometimes. They have a change of plans, and some of them end up at AESA University because they're one of the schools in Europe that allows students to combine sports and academics in a good way.
Right. And if we want to wrap up here a little bit, and if you want to provide some tips, for any young athlete looking to take the next step and combine their athletic talent with their education, what would it be? What are some of the final remarks you want to hand out here?
Oh, advice. This is a good question, and I can immediately think to common bits of advice that I give my students here. But let me first start in general terms. I know that often for young athletes, sports is the passion. It's what's going around in their brain all day long, right? But don't forget about the education. As I often tell my students here, look, take the best case scenario. You're the next Messi, you're the next Nadal, or whatever in your sport, right?
Yep.
Your knees are gonna go out before your brain stops working. This is almost the scientific facts, right?
Right.
So I think that still in the US, universities are doing a great job at putting that option together where you can combine sports and academics. And I think that that's a wonderful option for these young student athletes, because they can go on keep training. They can always go pro after university. In fact, that's what almost every single professional athlete does. And you can get most of your university studies paid for. I mean, some people even get the full ride. But considering how expensive university can be these days, especially in the United States, it's an extremely lucrative proposition, right? If you're going to go to a university that's $70,000 a year, and you can get a scholarship that pays for almost all of that over 4 years, that's not a bad deal, right?
No.
So I always encourage students to strike that balance and do their best at sports, but also do their best at school. That's what's going to make you a well-rounded person.
Right.
And that's the kind of advice that I would give students around high school age, right? Like 14 to 15. Or older than that, if you're leaving university, if you're looking to enter the professional world, I would say join SportIn Global, because I'm being serious. You guys have a wonderful network that could help connect people in the sports world. There's a lot of opportunities out there, even if you're not going to be the star on the field, to continue working in the sports industry and have these good careers. So I'm not kidding at all. I'm excited to tell all of my students about SportIn Global and get them signed up and on the platform, because many of them do want to pursue a career in the sports industry.
Sure, and it's something that kind of like natural happens too. And talk about like, you know, just start a little bit early, you know, of like just preparing yourself, you know, because in most cases also, like the majority of the ones that are pursuing to be professional athletes doesn't come that far. So it's always good to think about like, hey, maybe you just work in sports instead, like on the backside you could still be involved. But last year we're about to run out of time, and I just wanted to like make sure we do like our final challenge here. And I don't know if you know, we have kind of like a tradition with all our guests that I have to teach you a little bit Norwegian. So you gotta say.
Oh God! Wow, I wasn't ready for this.
I know that's the whole point. That's the whole point. Put you on the spot.
Some people say I look kind of Norwegian.
You kind of have like a Nordic view for sure. Nordic look. So with every video we do, we always finish with "Vi snakkes," which means "see you later" in Norwegian. So that's what you have to say. "Vi snakkes."
Vi is the first word. What's the first word?
"Vi snakkes."
Vi snakkes.
There you go. You know, practically Scandinavian Norwegian. All right. Thank you so much, Kyle, and we'll talk very soon.
Thank you, Olin. Really appreciate it.
Likewise, Kyle. Have a good one.